Downs. So we all have life's ups and downs, and you should take whatever I say. And if it rings true for you, keep it. If not, let it go. We have cherished our ups. However, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. And when we're in the middle of an up, we often don't even pay attention. But boy, when we're down, we pay lots of attention. We start swirling in the emotion of the downs. Somebody betrayed you, somebody was unfair, and you play that over and over and over again in your mind. Well, you're not the only one. I do it too. We have two main problems with the awful things. We replay them and we stack up those negative emotions. We even create an overcoat to protect ourselves and stuff it in our body somewhere. We store that anger, we store that frustration, we store whatever that emotion is. And eventually we can get sick from storing that emotion. Even if you think you're not storing that emotion, you often are. You're just like, okay, I'm just not going to react to this. But underneath, you're angry about the whole thing. It's like, how could that person be so unfair? How could that person be so awful to me? How can my family not treat me right? Why is that? Well, we talked about that last 2 weeks ago, I guess, your life chart. And last week, the levels of the soul. We come into life because God created us as experiencers to experience for Him and to perfect for ourselves. So we actually wrote in a lot of those awful things to experience and see what it's like. So if you experience something you don't like, something awful, then instead of spinning around in whatever it is, say it's your ungrateful family who's always taking advantage of you, gossiping about you, lying about you, whatever it is, instead of whirling around in that negativity, stop and think, why would I write this lesson in? What am I supposed to learn from it? What is the understanding? Hypnotists do that often. We have our clients go to whatever the issue is, find out why they're having that issue. What was the lesson? What was the understanding? What are you supposed to come to? It seems to be easier in hypnosis than it is in real life when you're not with the hypnotist. So, say someone was unfair to you. So, okay, they were unfair to you. What could you learn from that point in time? What could you learn from that event? What could you learn from that lesson? What understanding do you need to come to? All of life is overcoming these negative issues. That's the whole purpose for coming into life, these awful things. And we start looping them. If you don't learn the lesson, if you don't figure it out, then it repeats and repeats and repeats. People marry the same awful person. People have the same betrayals over and over again. Whatever it is, it repeats until you get it. And for me, it took lifetimes, 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 lifetimes. I know I mentioned my ex-fiance who would manipulate me. He came with a flowering face, as Shakespeare would say. He was charming, so charming. He was charming. He was fun. He was handsome. He was smart. However, once I got in his lair, his net, then he started controlling me, manipulating me, telling my friends that I wasn't available, cutting me off from other people. I remember one time he was best man at a wedding, so he was dancing with the bride. So the groom asked me to dance. Well, for 3 days, he wouldn't talk to me, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, it's because I danced with the best man. It's like you were dancing with the bride, and they're friends of ours. Well, that was not acceptable to him. And it took me a while to figure out, well, it's never going to be acceptable to him. And he's going to try and control whatever I'm doing. He's going to manipulate me. He wanted me to quit college the last quarter of the year, my senior year, and move to Michigan with him so he could go to medical school. It's like, finally, I figured out I don't need to do that. Just because he wants to do something doesn't mean I have to go along with it. Let me see if I have the sound right here. Maybe not. Okay, hopefully you could hear me because I didn't do a sound check and seems to be awfully low. Okay, so let me give you an example of unfair. I was teaching a class and I said something about someone not getting paid for teaching a class. And at lunch, people were discussing it, and then they told someone else about it who had been teaching a class before. And they believed that my friend, the teacher, believed the gossip that was being told. It was not true. The student had misunderstood what I said or extrapolated from what I said and blamed this other person for somebody not being paid. I never said that. Well, it was like 3 years before this person would ever talk to me again. They just assumed that what the person said was correct. Didn't check with me. Obviously, it was unfair. Okay, what could I do about it? The person was not talking to me, so it's like, okay, they may never talk to me again, and I'll lose that friendship, but that's the way it goes. What I did do was, and you can do also, ask my spirit guide to talk to their spirit guide and say, like, 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, I want to meet with them soul to soul while I'm asleep and they're asleep and talk about this issue. Well, that didn't work. So I went to plan two. There's a temple on the other side in heaven called the Temple of Reconnection. So I asked my guide to meet with their guide and have her meet me at the Hall of Reconnection to discuss it. So when I was asleep and she was asleep, we did that. But it was still, I'd say, 8 months later before someone who had been at that same luncheon talked to this other friend teacher of mine and explained what had really been said, what I had said, and what had been said at the luncheon, and how, no, that was not true, that I said whatever it was that the gossip was, the untruth, the unfairness. So sometimes you just got to let stuff go, because I wasn't going to sit there for years just going, my friend's gone away, my friend's gone away. Okay, my friend made a choice and I can make other friends, and I just miss that person, but it's still not the same relationship. But it was her choice not to find out from me what I actually said. She just assumed just because someone says something, it must be true. Was not true. So I figured it out and let it go, because I wasn't going to spin around in being in the emotion of, I'm so angry because she's not my friend anymore. I'm so upset because she's not my friend anymore. So once you figure out what you can do or what you need to let go of, then that emotion can go. But you need to deal with the emotion or you get sick. You know, some people's families are unfair to them, are rude to them, are mean to them, don't help them, lie about them, whatever the issue is. And then that person gets upset. That person takes it to heart that they are being treated so unfairly. And you spin around and spin around and spin around in that unfairness. And that doesn't get you anywhere except get you sick and keep you in the negative emotions of that point in time. Not helpful. You need to decide, okay, my family's not being cooperative. My family's being awful to me. Fine. I'll go find my own support group. Find your own friends, your own uh, family that you can create with a support group on earth of people who will love you, who will treat you nicely, and not accept the way you're being treated by the family. Are you standing up for yourself, or are you only saying it to yourself or your best friend, and you're not actually saying to your son who's taking advantage of you, this is not acceptable. This is not the way to be respectful and treat me. So either treat me politely, treat me respectfully, or don't come. That's the main problem, is people get upset because the family isn't coming. Well, maybe they shouldn't be coming. I remember my friend Sylvia Brown would say, you know, sometimes you can just let family go. They're not treating you right, then just let them go. Who says, where is it written that you have to stay with your blood family? Nowhere. If they're not treating you respectfully, they're not treating you politely, then don't accept that. But don't swirl around in the negativity of it. Don't swirl around in the emotion of it and make yourself sick. Often people get sick because they keep that emotion swirling, whatever the emotion is. Amazingly, we write in these lessons. We talked about life charts. We write these lessons to experience. We forget why when we come to Earth. But actually, we're supposed to overcome those lessons, those awful lessons. So, you have an awful lesson. Then you need to stop and reflect. That's a missing step. We don't stop and reflect. We don't try and figure out what was the lesson or understanding that I could come to by being in this lesson. For me, my friend that went away, it was fine. Okay, you're not going to be my friend anymore. I have other friends. And you're missing out because I'm a wonderful person and you're choosing not to even talk to me. That's your choice, not mine. I still love Eleanor Roosevelt's quotation about other people's opinions of me are not my business, are none of my business. So just because other people don't like you, other people think you were rude, other people think whatever, then reflect. Was I rude? Was I hurtful? Fine. If you were, then you can deal with that. But if you weren't, don't swirl around in the emotion of the unfairness of whatever they were spouting about their opinions and beliefs about your life. It's your life, not theirs. And their opinions are not your life chart. So move on. Sometimes we just need to move on. A master teacher, spirit guide of Sylvia's, would come into trance class and talk to us. And one thing he kept emphasizing, we do not cry enough. We do not cry enough. We need to work through our emotions. If we're upset, then be upset. Cry. If you're angry, then deal with that emotion. You can do a primal scream. That's where you go into a closet or you're in your car and you scream at the top of your lungs and get out that emotion. You can do it silently, which I've done before. If you're in a crowd of people or you're in with a whole bunch of people, just close your eyes and mentally scream and get that frustration out. If you're angry, then get a big cardboard box and tear it by hand. Go punch a pillow. Go kick a can. Go do something to get that emotion out. Let it flow through you. But also stop and think, what did I need to understand from this? What did I need to learn from this? If you don't, the lesson repeats. Like I told you about my ex-fiance, he'd been in my life lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and I still didn't get it. So this lifetime, I finally got it. Finally, I was able to say, I don't need someone who's controlling and manipulating me. I can let him go. He is not a positive in my life. He's a negative. He's taking away from me. My life was calmer being away from him. So think about whatever it is that's bothering you. Why is it bothering you? For me, the manipulation and the control of my ex-fiance, I had to realize that was going over and over again. Okay, where else in my life was I allowing people to manipulate me or control me? And until I had gathered those up and taken away the emotion of it, let it go, then that was pulled out. That issue was pulled out. That idea was pulled out. So I overcame that lesson. Much of life, we try to please other people. So we'll change our true selves. We'll change how we react to people by what we think other people want us to be, how we think other people believe we should act. We need to pay attention to what our true self is and allow ourselves to react to life the way that we truly want to react to life. What if I don't act a certain way, then this other person's not going to love me? Well, if they don't love you, go find someone who will love you, because you don't need to be around that person. And love yourself. Love yourself. Be with yourself. That's the main person to love, is yourself. Stop replaying these negative things and figure out, why did you repeat this lesson? What are you supposed to figure out from this? I know one of my life lessons was being treated as if I did not have worth. So in high school, an unjust rumor kept me from being elected to an office. Yet the person who was in that office would have me released from class so I could do her job. So I did not get the accolades, but I did do the job, which is kind of odd. A boss did not treat me as if I was worthwhile. In fact, I lost tens of thousands of dollars every year because he was preventing me from having credit for a class that I'd taken. I was teaching at the time, and you get an increase in salary if you take a certain number of classes to improve your skills. And it was like a court case where I had to stand up for taking the class and tell why I should have credit for that class in a board meeting with hundreds of people. Well, he had my papers in his hand, my documents in his hand, and was like negating everything I said. Well, I didn't have my documents because he had them in his hand. I turned him into the superintendent. That was unfair. But it took me a while to figure out, because that went on for years. I'd lost thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. I was a California finalist for a presidential award. And another person who was up for a presidential award in her state and I were at a big meeting with Nobel laureates. And we were in the audience, and they asked for all the people who were finalists for a presidential award to stand. So we stood, and they talked to all the people who were standing, who were male, and asked them about their project, I guess, or whatever it was, our application and why we were chosen. And they negated us. They didn't even acknowledge us in the room. It's like we didn't even matter. Excuse me. And And the same thing happened in a professional organization. Somebody brought up that I was a finalist for a presidential award, and the moderators, the teachers, just ignored it completely. It was like it didn't count. And then the next year, somebody was up for that presidential award, and it was accolades all over the place. Everybody should be paying attention to them. Isn't that wonderful? And when I was the person who was up for the presidential award, then it was like not important. And that replayed and replayed and replayed, that you're not worthy, replayed and replayed in my life until I figured out that I could let that go, that I am worthy, that I am a person who's lovable, that I am okay. And other people's opinions of me do not matter. They do not matter. God's opinion of me matters. My opinion of me matters. Other people's opinions do not matter. But we take them as serious things that we need to pay attention to. Just because someone doesn't like you doesn't mean you have to pay attention to them. Just because someone decides you should have done something else in your life instead of what you did, they are not walking in your shoes, as the saying goes. And you can let that go. Just let it go. I have a relative who used to complain about his parents. He would call me and complain about his parents and how awful they were and how they were interrupting his life and causing his life to be bad. Well, it's his choices. He liked to manipulate people, and he was a great speaker and would take people under his wing and always play the victim. He always thought he was going to be rich by the time he was 30, and he wasn't. So it must be my parents' fault, his parents' fault, somebody's parents' fault, because it had to be the relatives, or because it couldn't be him. It couldn't be him not going forward in life. You know, just because we have something written in our chart or something we expect to do, we need to put effort forth to actually have that happen. If we just stand there and say, okay, life, just come to me, we are not entitled to all these things. I know some people think that we're entitled to be rich. I have a friend whose daughter, her life goal was to be rich. She's just going to be rich. And that's what's going to happen in her life. And that has not happened. Just because you want to be rich doesn't mean you are going to be rich. And if you want to be rich, well, then work towards that. She just wanted it to come to her to be rich. Okay. So we come into life with these awful lessons that we can't even remember writing because we're on the other side in this wonderful, loving location, the Hall of Charts, and we sit there with our friends and we go, oh, I'll sign up for that. I'll do that. I'll take on that wonderful lesson. I can learn from that. But then we get here and we go, what was I thinking? What was wrong with me? Why did I sign up for that? Why would I want to sign up for being betrayed? Why would I want to sign up for being bankrupt? Why would I want to sign up for losing my job all the time? What is the problem with me? Well, you wanted to overcome that. So what are you going to do? Stop and reflect. Every day it'd be good to pick a time, 9:00 at night. Sit there and reflect. Okay, what do I need to figure out about my life? Am I emotional about something? Fine. Then bring up that emotion and let it flow through you. Really bring up that emotion. If you're angry, then be angry. Go kick a can. Go primal scream and let it go through you. Then figure out, are there other times in my life where I was going through this again? Is this a repeating lesson? Okay, what can I do about that? What do I need to learn or understand to overcome this? Sometimes it's just like, I am not going to be a victim anymore. I don't need to be a victim anymore. Or I'm not going to be the person who's rejected anymore. I can love myself and let that go. I don't need other people's wonderful opinions of me to have a good life. I can love myself and be okay with myself and let that go. I don't need to keep it in my life anymore. Love yourself. Stand up for yourself. No, God appreciates you coming into life to experience. And boy, do we write in these awful lessons. Can't believe the awful lessons we write in. Reflect. Let those emotions flow through you. Gather them up and really experience them. Experience them. You don't want to keep them and get sick from storing them in your body somewhere. If you talk to your spirit guides and your angels, be specific and tell them you need help letting go of whatever this is. If you still can't do it, go to an energy healer, go to a hypnotist, go to a therapist, and get to the point of the issue and let it go. What do you need to understand or learn from whatever that is? Okay. Thank you for joining me. I am so glad that you did. Next Wednesday, 10 a.m., I'll be talking about a spiritual topic, probably the knowledge. We talked about the 12 levels of the soul, but there's levels of knowledge too. So I think I'll talk about that. God appreciates you. God loves you no matter what, unconditionally. I'm going to send you a bubble of love from me. Thank you for joining me. Bye.